The sound of the drill echoed through the dark tunnels like a scream. Kang Do-yoon wiped sweat from his face and kept working. His hands were bloody from gripping the mining tool for 12 hours straight. But he did not stop. He could not stop. The Vorthak guards would beat him if he stopped. 3 years had passed since Earth fell. 3 years since Do-hyun watched his friends die in the ruins of Seoul. 3 years since humanity became slaves to an empire that stretched across the stars. Now, he lived in a metal box on Kepler 438b, a cold moon that smelled like rust and death. Every day was the same. Wake up. Work in the mines. Eat thin soup. Sleep. Wake up again. The other humans in his work group were dying slowly. Their eyes had gone empty. Their spirits were broken like old toys. Do-hyun felt the same emptiness growing inside him. Sometimes he wondered if it would be easier to just give up. Move faster, human, growled Grixtal, the Vorthak overseer. The alien stood 8 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His yellow eyes never showed mercy. The Empire needs more crystals. Do-hyun nodded and pushed his drill deeper into the rock wall. The blue crystals they mined powered Vorthak warships. Each crystal helped the Empire conquer more worlds, more species like humanity. But today felt different. Do-hyun could not explain why. Something in the air had changed. The rock beneath his drill felt warm, almost alive. Jung, whispered Park Min-soo, the young man working beside him. Min-soo was only 19, barely more than a boy. Something is wrong with the wall. Do-hyun looked closer. The rock face was glowing with a soft silver light. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. His drill had broken through into something hollow. Get back, Do-hyun said quietly. He did not want the guards to notice yet. The hole in the wall grew larger. Behind the rock was a chamber that should not exist. The mining computers had mapped every inch of these tunnels. There was no room here, no space for anything to hide. But the chamber was real. Cool air flowed out of the opening, carrying a strange smell. It reminded Do-hyun of forests and rain and something else, something wild and free that he had almost forgotten. What did you find? Grixtal's voice boomed behind them. Do-hyun turned slowly. The overseer's 4 arms were crossed, and his yellow eyes were narrow with suspicion. Just another crystal vein, Do-hyun lied. Nothing special. But Grixtal pushed past him and looked into the hole. His gray skin turned pale. This chamber is not on the maps. How is this possible? The overseer called for more guards. Soon, 6 Vorthak soldiers surrounded the opening. They carried energy weapons that could burn through steel. Their leader was a female named Zethra who had scars covering half her face. Expand the opening, she ordered. The Empire must know what is inside. Do-hyun and the other humans worked for 2 more hours. Their drills carved a hole big enough for people to walk through. The silver light grew brighter as they worked. When they finished, Zethra sent her soldiers into the chamber first. Do-hyun heard their boots echo in the empty space. One of them cursed in the Vorthak language. Commander, a soldier called out. You need to see this. Zethra motioned for the humans to enter. Do-hyun stepped through the opening and gasped. The chamber was huge, bigger than a football field. The walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed with their own light. In the center of the room sat a single object. It was a pod made of black metal and crystal. The pod was 12 feet long and 6 feet wide. Strange tubes and wires connected it to the floor. All of them were dark now, their power long dead, but the pod itself still hummed with energy. Ancient technology, Zethra whispered. This could be worth more than all the crystals on this moon. She walked closer to the pod. Do-hyun followed, driven by curiosity he could not explain. The other humans stayed near the entrance, afraid. The top of the pod was made of clear crystal. Through it, Do-hyun could see something inside. At first he thought it was a person. Then he realized it was an animal, a tiger, but not like any tiger that had ever lived on Earth. This creature was massive, easily twice the size of the tigers Do-hyun remembered from old videos. Its fur seemed to shift between orange and gold and silver. Even sleeping, it looked powerful beyond belief. Impossible, Zethra breathed. The scanners show it is still alive. After all this time. Do-hyun pressed his hand against the crystal. The moment his skin touched the surface, everything changed. Images flooded his mind. He saw Earth as it was before the pollution and war. Green forests where tigers ran free. He felt their strength, their pride, their fierce love for their cubs. He saw the Vorthak Empire in its early days when they first found this moon. They had discovered the sleeping tiger and tried to study it, but the creature was too dangerous to wake. So they buried it deep underground and forgot about it. The tiger's eyes opened. They were like looking into deep space itself. Stars seemed to dance in those golden depths. The creature looked directly at Do-hyun through the crystal, and he felt its voice in his mind. Not words. Something deeper than words. Emotions and memories and a sadness so deep it made Do-hyun's chest hurt. The tiger had been sleeping for 10,000 years, dreaming of freedom, dreaming of home, dreaming of someone who would understand its pain. Someone like Do-hyun. Step away from the pod, Zethra ordered. But her voice sounded far away now. The tiger pressed one massive paw against the crystal from the inside. Where it touched, cracks began to spread. The humming grew louder. The silver light in the chamber pulsed faster. "It is waking up," one of the soldiers said. Fear filled his voice. Zethra raised her weapon. "All units prepare to fire. We cannot let this thing escape." But Do-hyun could not move. The tiger's eyes held him frozen. In those golden depths he saw something impossible. Hope. The crystal shattered like glass. The tiger rose from the broken pod like a sunrise made of fire and starlight. Its fur rippled with colors that had no names. Orange flames danced along its back. Silver light glowed around its massive paws. When it stood at full height, its head nearly touched the chamber ceiling. The Vorthak soldiers opened fire immediately. Beams of red energy struck the tiger's body, but instead of burning through flesh, the beams passed right through the creature like it was made of smoke. The tiger looked at the soldiers with calm golden eyes. Then it spoke without moving its mouth. Its voice echoed inside everyone's head at the same time. "I am Baeko. I have been sleeping too long." Zethra screamed orders at her soldiers. "Keep firing. Use the plasma grenades. Kill it before it kills us." But Baeko simply walked toward the chamber entrance. Where its paws touched the ground, small flowers began to grow from the stone floor. The tiger moved past the terrified humans like they were not even there. Only when it reached Do-hyun did it pause. The massive creature lowered its great head until its nose almost touched Do-hyun's face. Its breath smelled like mountain air and ancient forests. Up close, Do-hyun could see that the tiger's eyes held tiny galaxies complete with spinning stars. "You freed me," Baeko said inside his mind. "But I was already free. I chose to sleep until the right moment. Until I found you." "I don't understand," Do-hyun whispered. "You will." The tiger padded out of the chamber. The Vorthak soldiers followed, still firing uselessly. Their energy weapons had no effect on a creature that existed between dimensions. Do-hyun stumbled after them, his legs weak with shock. The other human workers pressed against the walls as he passed. Their eyes were wide with fear and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Back in the main mining tunnel, chaos had erupted. More Vorthak guards were running toward the chamber. They carried bigger weapons now. Weapons designed to kill entire buildings. But Baeko was nowhere to be seen. "Where did it go?" Zethra shouted. "Find the creature. Search every tunnel." "Commander," one of her soldiers called out. His voice shook with terror. "The beast is not in the tunnels." "Then where?" "It is in our barracks." The screaming started 5 minutes later. Do-hyun heard it echoing through the mining complex. High, inhuman shrieks that made his blood turn cold. The sounds of the Vorthak language being spoken in panic and pain. Then silence. Terrible silence. Grixtal grabbed Do-hyun by his torn shirt. The overseer's forearms shook with rage. "What did you do? What was that thing?" "I don't know," Do-hyun said honestly. "I just touched the pod." "Liar." Grixtal raised his hand to strike. The lights went out. In the darkness, Do-hyun heard something impossible. Purring, low and deep like distant thunder. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows on the tunnel walls. Grixtal was gone. Where he had been standing, only claw marks remained. Claw marks that cut through solid metal like it was paper. "Baeko," Do-hyun called softly. The purring grew louder. Warmth spread through Do-hyun's body, starting from his chest and flowing outward. The cuts on his hands began to heal. The ache in his back from years of hard labor faded away. "I am with you now," the tiger's voice whispered in his mind. "As you are with me." Over the next 3 days, every Vorthak on the mining station disappeared. The human workers found their bodies scattered throughout the complex. Some looked like they had been torn apart by claws the size of swords. Others simply looked peaceful, as if they had died in their sleep. But there were no wounds on the peaceful ones. It was as if their life force had simply been drained away. Do-hyun began to understand that Baeko was not just a large cat. The tiger existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. It could walk through walls. It could become invisible. It could reach into a person's mind and stop their heart with a thought. The creature had been sleeping for 10,000 years, waiting for the right companion, waiting for someone whose pain matched its own ancient sadness. On the 4th morning, Do-hyun found Baeko sitting in the main cafeteria. The tiger had made itself visible again. Its fur gleamed like liquid starlight in the fluorescent lights. "They hurt children here," Baeko said without looking at him. Do-hyun nodded. He had seen it many times. Vorthak guards beating human children for stealing scraps of food. Young ones like Minsu worked 16 hours a day in the deepest, most dangerous tunnels. "Show me," the tiger commanded. That afternoon, Do-hyun led Baeko to the children's work area. 23 human children between the ages of 8 and 16 were breaking rocks with hammers too heavy for their small hands. Their Vorthak supervisor carried a shock stick that he used whenever they moved too slowly. As they watched, a little girl named Sujin dropped her hammer. She was maybe 10 years old, with arms like twigs and eyes too big for her thin face. The supervisor hit her with the shock stick. The girl screamed and fell to the ground, her body shaking from the electric current. Something broke inside Do-hyun's chest. For 3 years he had watched the Vorthak hurt his people. He had stayed quiet to survive. He had told himself that fighting back would only make things worse. But seeing Sujin writhing on the ground in pain, he could not stay quiet anymore. Tears ran down his face. Not tears of sadness this time, tears of pure rage. Baeko felt those tears like drops of fire on its cosmic consciousness. The tiger's golden eyes blazed with light that hurt to look at directly. "Now you understand," it said. "This is why I chose you. This is why I waited so long." The supervisor raised his shock stick to hit Sujin again. He never got the chance. Baeko materialized behind him like a nightmare made of starfire. The tiger's roar shook the entire mining complex. Windows shattered. Metal walls cracked. The sound carried impossible fury and 10,000 years of patient waiting. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. When it was over, the supervisor was gone. Only his shock stick remained, twisted into a pretzel and smoking on the ground. The children stared at Baeko with wonder instead of fear. Sujin stood up slowly, her injuries already healing from the tiger's presence. "Are you an angel?" she asked, in a small voice. Baeko lowered its great head and gently licked her forehead. Where its tongue touched her skin, a small mark appeared. The mark looked like a tiny silver star. "I am Justice," the tiger replied. "And Justice has been sleeping far too long." That night, word of the incident spread through the secret communication networks that connected human slaves across the Vorthak Empire. The message was simple but electrifying. A human had found something powerful, something that could fight back, something that made the Vorthak afraid. The hunt was about to begin. The message traveled faster than light through the hidden networks that connected human slaves across the galaxy. In the factory cities of Rigel 7, workers whispered about a tiger made of starfire. On the prison ships near Vega, guards found secret drawings carved into cell walls showing a great cat with burning eyes. Park Ji-soo heard the story while working in a weapons factory on the Outer Rim. She was the leader of a small resistance cell. 12 humans who had never given up hope of freedom. When the message reached her through a chain of trusted contacts, she almost could not believe it. A cosmic tiger, she said to her second in command, a former teacher named Kim Tae-ho. Walking with one of our own, killing Vorthak soldiers like they are nothing. Tae-ho shook his head. It sounds like a fairy tale. Something to give us false hope. But 3 days later, another message arrived. Then another. Reports were coming in from dozens of worlds. Vorthak outposts going silent. Guard stations found empty, with only claw marks on the walls. And always survivors spoke of the same thing. A human man with sad eyes, walking beside a tiger that seemed to be made of light itself. On Kepler 438b, Do-hyun was learning what it meant to be chosen by a force of nature. Baeko had begun teaching him to see the world differently. When the tiger touched his mind, Do-hyun could perceive things that should have been impossible. He saw the energy that connected all living things. He felt the pain of every enslaved creature on 100 different worlds. This is how I navigate the stars, Baeko explained as they stood on a ridge overlooking the mining complex. Through the web of suffering and joy that binds all consciousness together. Do-hyun watched as the tiger showed him streams of light that flowed between distant suns. Each stream carried the emotions of the beings living in those star systems. Fear, hope, love, despair. All of it flowing like rivers through space itself. The Vorthak have torn holes in this web, Baeko continued. Their cruelty creates darkness that spreads like poison. It must be stopped. How can we stop an entire empire? Do-hyun asked. One world at a time. One act of justice at a time. That night, Baeko showed Do-hyun how to step between the streams of light. It felt like falling through empty space and flying at the same time. One moment they were standing on the cold moon. The next they materialized on a tropical world 3 star systems away. The planet was called Haven 12 by the Vorthak, but its original inhabitants had called it Green Song. Now it was a slave farm where humans grew food for the Empire's armies. Do-hyun and Baeko appeared in the middle of a work camp, just as the evening meal was being distributed. Thin soup and stale bread for 300 human prisoners. The guards were Vorthak regulars, heavily armed and cruel. The camp's commander was a massive alien named Krexvor. He stood 9 feet tall and enjoyed making examples of workers who moved too slowly. As Do-hyun watched, the commander grabbed an elderly human woman by her gray hair. You work too slowly today, old female, Krexvor growled. The others must learn from your mistake. He raised a metal club above his head. Baeko materialized between them like a living star. The commander's club struck the tiger's shoulder and shattered like glass. Krexvor stared in shock at the creature that had appeared from nowhere. What are you? He whispered. I am the consequence of your choices, Baeko replied. What happened next was too fast for most of the humans to follow. Baeko moved like lightning, made flesh. The commander and his 12 guards simply vanished, leaving only empty armor scattered on the ground. The liberated humans stared at their rescuers in amazement. Some fell to their knees. Others began to cry with relief. But Do-hyun felt no joy. Through his connection with Baeko, he could sense other worlds where humans still suffered. Dozens of them. Hundreds. We cannot save them all, he said quietly. No, Baeko agreed, but we can inspire them to save themselves. Over the next month, they visited 17 different worlds. Sometimes they freed entire prison camps. Sometimes they simply eliminated the cruelest guards and vanished again. Each liberation sent ripples through the galactic network of human. Slaves' hope began to spread like wildfire. On Rigel 7, Park Ji-soo felt the change immediately. Her factory workers started standing straighter. They met the guards' eyes instead of looking at the floor. small acts of defiance that would have been impossible before. "Something is different," she told Taiho as they met in secret beneath the factory. "Our people are remembering how to fight back. The tiger stories are giving them courage," Taiho agreed. "But courage alone will not free us. We need weapons, plans, coordination." Jisoo nodded, but inside she felt something her people had lost years ago. She felt hope. Meanwhile, news of the liberations was reaching the highest levels of the Vorthak Empire. Emperor Vashtor himself summoned his military commanders to the capital world. "Explain to me," the Emperor said in his ice-cold voice, "how a single human and his pet are destroying my outer rim territories." General Kextal, the Empire's top military leader, shifted nervously. "My lord, this is not a normal animal. Our scientists believe it may be one of the legendary star tigers of Andromeda." "Legends," the Emperor spat. "Fairy tales to frighten children. The legends speak of creatures that exist between dimensions," the general continued. "Beings that appear when the balance of the universe is threatened. They say the star tigers once brought down entire civilizations." Emperor Vashtor's eyes glowed with anger. "Then we will kill this tiger before it kills us. Activate the Third Fleet. I want every ship we have hunting this creature." "My lord, conventional weapons have proven useless against it. Then we will use unconventional weapons. Ready the null cannons. If we cannot kill the tiger directly, we will destroy every world it visits. Eventually we will trap it somewhere with no escape." But the Emperor did not understand what he was truly facing. Baiko was not just a powerful animal. It was a force of cosmic balance that had existed since the birth of the galaxy. And now, for the first time in 10,000 years, it had found a companion whose tears could unlock its full potential. On a forgotten world at the edge of Vorthak space, Dohyun knelt beside a mass grave of human children. The Vorthak had killed them when their small hands could no longer work the mining equipment fast enough. Tears rolled down his face as he looked at the tiny bodies. These children had died alone, far from home, with no one to mourn them. But they were not alone now. Baiko stood beside him, its golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Where Dohyun's tears fell, small flowers began to grow from the poisoned soil. "I feel your pain," the tiger said softly. "Your tears awakened something in me that has slept too long." "What?" Dohyun asked through his grief. "The memory of why I was created. The universe made my kind to protect the innocent, to be the sword of justice when justice is needed most." Baiko raised its great head and roared. The sound echoed across dimensions, reaching corners of space that existed outside normal reality. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, other voices answered that call. The hunt was about to become something far greater than the Vorthak Empire could imagine. The first slave revolt began on Rigel 7 at exactly dawn. Park Jisoo had waited for the right moment, when the night shift guards were tired and the day shift had not yet arrived. 300 human workers rose up as one, using mining tools and factory equipment as weapons. The Vorthak guards were caught completely off guard. They had grown lazy over the years, used to dealing with broken spirits and empty eyes. They were not prepared for humans who fought with desperate courage. By noon, the humans controlled half the factory complex. By evening, they had taken the entire planet. Similar uprisings erupted across the galaxy. On Vega Prime, human prisoners overwhelmed their guards using nothing but their bare hands and unbreakable will. On the ice world of Titan 9, enslaved families fought side by side to protect their children. But the most shocking rebellion came from an unexpected source. The Zerathi, a species of crystal beings who had been enslaved for 2 centuries, suddenly joined the fight. Their bodies could conduct electricity like living lightning rods. When they touched Vorthak weapons, the energy feedback killed the wielders instantly. Even more surprising were the Verdani, plant-like creatures who had never shown aggression before. They began growing toxic spores that made Vorthak soldiers sick just by breathing near them. Their roots spread through ventilation systems, poisoning entire military bases. Emperor Vashtor watched the reports with growing fury. In his palace on the capital world, he paced back and forth like a caged animal. His advisors cowered as he threw data tablets against the marble walls. "How is this possible?" he roared. "These species have been our slaves for generations. They were broken. Defeated." "My lord," General Kextal said carefully, "our intelligence suggests they are being inspired by the stories of the human and his tiger. The legend is spreading faster than we can contain it. Then we stop the legend at its source. Where is this human now?" "Unknown, my lord. He and the creature appear and disappear without warning. Our tracking systems cannot follow them." "Emperor," Fashator's eyes glowed with deadly light. He had ruled the galaxy for 300 years through fear and overwhelming force. No single enemy had ever challenged his empire like this. "If we cannot find them," he said slowly, "then we force them to come to us." On a distant world called Europa Station, Kim Soman was working in her laboratory when the announcement came. She was a brilliant scientist who had been forced to develop new weapons for the Vorthak war machine. Her specialty was studying ancient technologies that the Empire had collected from conquered worlds. The announcement echoed through every speaker in the station. Emperor Vashator's voice was cold as winter death. "Citizens of the Empire, a terrorist and his beast have been attacking our peaceful territories. They call themselves liberators, but they are destroyers of order. To show what happens to those who defy imperial law, we will now execute 1,000 human slaves. This execution will continue every day until the terrorist surrenders himself." Soman's blood turned to ice. She knew exactly which terrorist the Emperor meant. The stories had reached even this remote research station. A human named Do-hyun, who walked with a tiger made of starlight. But she also knew something the Emperor did not. In her years of studying ancient artifacts, she had found references to the star tigers in texts that were millions of years old. They were not pets or weapons. They were something far more dangerous. They were the universe's immune system. The first mass execution happened that same day. 1,000 humans on Europa Station were marched into the main docking bay and pushed out of airlocks into the cold vacuum of space. Soman was forced to watch as her colleagues and friends died, gasping for air that would never come. She wept as she watched them die. But her tears were not just from sadness. They burned with rage that felt almost supernatural. Similar executions began happening on 50 different worlds. The Emperor's message was clear. Every day Do-hyun remained free, more humans would die. The news reached Do-hyun on a barren moon where he and Baiko had been resting. The tiger had been teaching him to understand the cosmic web that connected all living things. Through that web, they felt every death like a physical blow. "They are killing our people because of us," Do-hyun said, his voice breaking. "Innocent humans are dying because I chose to fight back." Baiko's golden eyes reflected infinite sadness. "Evil always punishes the innocent when it cannot reach its true enemy. This is not your fault. But I could stop it. I could surrender. And then what? You die, I return to sleep, and nothing changes. The Empire continues its cruelty forever." Do-hyun fell to his knees as reports of more executions reached them through the cosmic web. Children on Centauri 4, elderly humans on Wolf 359, entire families on distant colony worlds. His tears fell like rain on the dusty ground. Each drop seemed to glow with inner fire. Baiko felt those tears like burning stars in its consciousness. The tiger's connection to the cosmic web suddenly blazed with new intensity. For the first time in 10,000 years, it sent out a call that crossed not just space but time itself. The call reached 7 other sleeping star tigers, hidden in the spaces between dimensions. Each had been waiting for the right moment to awaken. Each had been searching for a human companion whose tears could unlock their full power. On Europa Station, Kim Soman felt something impossible happen. As she wept for her dead friends, warmth suddenly filled her chest. Golden light began to glow around her hands. In the prison camps of Vega Prime, a former soldier named Lee Jinho was watching his daughter starve when tears of rage spilled down his face. The air around him shimmered, and he smelled the scent of mountain forests. On 7 different worlds, 7 different humans cried tears of perfect grief for the innocent dead. And in the darkness between stars, 7 ancient guardians opened their eyes. Park Jisoo was leading another attack on a Vorthak weapons depot when it happened. Her assault team was pinned down by enemy fire. 3 of her people had already died. As she held the body of young Taiho, her tears of loss awakened something that had been sleeping since the birth of the galaxy. A tiger made of silver moonlight stepped out of the shadows beside her. Its eyes held the same cosmic depth as Baeko's, but where Baeko was fire and starlight, this tiger was ice and moonbeams. "I am Cheongho," it said in her mind, "and I choose you." Similar awakenings happened across the empire. Suddenly, the Vorthak found themselves facing not one impossible enemy, but 8. 8 humans bonded with 8 star tigers, each more powerful than anything in their arsenal. Emperor Vashator received the reports in his throne room. His hands shook as he read about tigers made of lightning, tigers made of shadow, tigers made of pure cosmic energy. "This is impossible," he whispered. The legend spoke of only 1 star tiger. General Kextal's voice was barely audible. "My lord, perhaps the legends were incomplete." The emperor stood slowly. His empire was crumbling around him, but he still had one final weapon, something so terrible that even he hesitated to use it. "Prepare the planet killers," he ordered. "If we cannot defeat these creatures, we will destroy every world they try to protect. Let them save empty space." But as he gave the order, he failed to notice something crucial. His own tears of frustration and fear were falling to the marble floor of his throne room. And in the darkness of deep space, something very old and very patient felt those tears and began to stir. The 8 star tigers and their human companions gathered on a world that existed between dimensions. It was a place where space bent like water, and time moved in gentle circles. Here, the cosmic web that connected all living things could be seen with naked eyes, stretching between distant galaxies like rivers of light. Doyun stood with Baeko at the center of the group. Around them were 7 other humans, each bonded with their own tiger guardian. Park Jisoo and her silver tiger, Cheongho. Kim So-min and her tiger of pure energy called Bicho. Lee Jinho and his shadow tiger named Yumho. Each human carried the same look in their eyes, the deep sadness that came from watching their people suffer, the burning anger that came from being helpless for too long. And now, something new. The fierce determination of those who had found the power to fight back. "The Emperor has activated his planet killer weapons," Soman reported. "She had escaped from Europa Station just before the Vorthak destroyed it completely. He is planning to eliminate every world where humans live. If he cannot rule us, he will erase us entirely." "How long do we have?" Jisoo asked. 3 days. Maybe less. The weapons need time to charge, but once they fire, entire star systems will be gone in seconds. Baeko looked at its 7 kin with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. "The time for small victories has ended. We must strike at the heart of the empire itself." "The capital world," Doyun said. "Vorthak Prime." "A planet with 1 billion inhabitants," Jinho pointed out. "Surrounded by the largest fleet in the galaxy. Even with our tigers, how can we reach the Emperor?" Baeko's answer was simple: "We walk." The next morning, 8 humans and 8 cosmic tigers appeared in the main square of Vorthak Prime's capital city. They did not arrive in ships or through transporters. They simply stepped out of the space between heartbeats, materializing like a dream made real. The square was filled with thousands of Vorthak citizens going about their daily lives. When they saw the tigers, panic erupted. Aliens ran in every direction, screaming in their harsh language. Some tried to call for help on Diu, communication devices that suddenly stopped working, but the tigers made no move to harm anyone. They simply walked forward, their human companions beside them, heading toward the massive palace that dominated the city center. Vorthak military forces responded within minutes. Hundreds of soldiers surrounded the group, weapons aimed and ready. Hover tanks moved into position. War machines that could level mountains prepared to fire. The weapons were useless. When the soldiers fired, their energy beams passed through the tigers like light through colored glass. When the tanks shot explosive shells, the projectiles simply vanished before impact. The war machines found their targeting systems showing 8 humans and 8 tigers in 1,000 different locations at once. Emperor Vashator watched from his throne room as the impossible procession moved through his capital. His hands gripped the arms of his chair so tightly that the metal began to bend. "All units, fall back," he ordered through gritted teeth. "Let them come." The throne room was the size of a cathedral, with walls made of black stone and windows that showed the stars beyond. Emperor Vashator sat on a throne carved from a single piece of meteorite, wearing robes that sparkled with captured starlight. He was not alone. His elite guard surrounded him, 40 of the Empire's deadliest warriors. Behind them stood his advisors and generals, all watching the entrance with fear in their eyes. The massive doors opened without anyone touching them. 8 humans and 8 tigers entered the chamber like they were walking through a peaceful garden. "So," the Emperor said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "The terrorists finally show themselves." Do-hyun stepped forward. After months of running and fighting, he looked directly into the eyes of the being who had enslaved his people. "We are not terrorists," he said quietly. "We are justice." Emperor Vashator laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Justice? You have destroyed my outposts, killed my soldiers, turned my slaves against me. You call this justice?" "Your soldiers murdered children," Jisoo said, her voice hard as steel. "Your slaves were free people before you conquered their worlds." "Might makes right," the Emperor replied. "The strong rule the weak. This is the natural order of the universe." Baeko stepped forward, its golden eyes meeting the Emperor's gaze. "There is a higher order than strength. There is balance. There is compassion. There is the choice to protect rather than destroy." Pretty words from a beast that has killed thousands of my people. I killed those who chose cruelty over kindness, those who turned love into fear, those who made children cry for their mothers in languages they would never hear again. Emperor Vashator rose from his throne. In his hand materialized a weapon that pulsed with dark energy. It was a sword forged from the compressed core of a dead star, capable of cutting through dimensions themselves. "Then let us see whose philosophy is stronger," he snarled. The Emperor attacked with speed that defied physics. His star sword cut through the air where Baeko had been standing, leaving tears in reality itself. But the tiger was already somewhere else, moving between the spaces that existed outside normal time. The battle lasted exactly 17 seconds. When it ended, Emperor Vashator knelt on the floor of his throne room, his weapon shattered, his royal robes torn. But he was not injured. Instead, he was weeping. Baeko had not hurt him physically. Instead, the tiger had forced him to experience every moment of pain he had caused others. Every child who had cried for help. Every parent who had watched their family torn apart. Every slave who had died alone and forgotten. 300 years of casual cruelty hit the Emperor all at once. The weight of it crushed his spirit like a mountain falling from the sky. "Make it stop," he whispered through his tears. "Please, make it stop. This is what you chose," Do-hyun said, kneeling beside the broken ruler. "This is what you created. Feel it. Remember it. Learn from it." Around the throne room, the Emperor's guards and advisors were experiencing the same revelation. Each Vorthak felt the pain they had caused, the fear they had spread, the hope they had destroyed. Some collapsed. Others wept openly. A few simply stared into space with eyes that would never be the same. But something unexpected happened as their tears fell. The cosmic web that connected all living things began to change. Where before, there had been streams of darkness flowing from the Vorthak Empire, now there were points of light. Small at first, but growing brighter with each tear of genuine remorse. Baeko felt the change immediately. Its connection to the cosmic web blazed with new intensity. But this time the intensity came not from anger or the need for justice. It came from something far more powerful. Forgiveness. The 8-star tigers began to fade. Their work was done. The balance had been restored not through destruction but through understanding. The Vorthak would never again be a threat to innocent lives. Their capacity for cruelty had been burned away by their own tears. "Wait," Do-hyun called out as Baeko became translucent. "Are you leaving us?" We must return to the spaces between stars, Baiko replied, its voice growing distant. But we are not truly leaving. We are part of you now as you are part of us. The bond we forged will never break. As the tigers disappeared, each left a gift for their human companion. Do-hyun felt warmth in his chest that would never fade. Jisoo found that she could sense the emotions of those around her. Soman discovered she could heal injuries with a touch. The gifts were different for each person, but they all served the same purpose: to help build a better galaxy than the one they had inherited. 6 months later, Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of a ship, approaching Earth. The planet was green again, its skies clear, its oceans blue. Somehow, in the transformation of the Vorthak Empire, Earth itself had been restored to the way it was before pollution and war had scarred it. Forests covered the continents, and in those forests, tigers ran free once more. "Do you think they're happy?" Jisoo asked, joining him at the window. She had become the first human ambassador to the reformed Vorthak Republic. "I think they're home," Do-hyun replied. In the forest below, a flash of orange and gold moved between the trees. For just a moment, Do-hyun could swear he saw golden eyes looking up at him, eyes that held the warmth of a bond that would never be broken. The tiger had never belonged to him, but it had chosen him. And in choosing each other, they had changed the galaxy forever. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the courage to shed tears for those who cannot cry for themselves.